Thank you. So again, my name is Brandon from Highland Software, one of the solution architects here, and I'll be just covering the contract management application today. So, as Carlos went over, right now you're seeing my personal screen, and really the tiles again that are laid out here are really just specific to that contract management application. So I've gone ahead and really, again, just provided those customizable layout that would best fit the needs of that user that might be working within the application. So really, before I get started on this, I really just want to speak to the entire process of what we'll be going through today. So first, we'll be submitting that initial contract request based off of one of the tiles I have here. And once that contract request is submitted, it's really going to move into a triaging queue and really start that process of a contract management. So once we want to start that process of and we get that initial contract request, we're going to want to make our way to that appropriate queue on the personal page. So as we open up that contract request form here, just know that this is really just an electronic form, and we have some information that has already been pre-configured in the background of OnBase. And just know that really all this information and these different fields here are all just based off the easy point and click configurability within OnBase. So what I'm going to do first is just go ahead and select some information. That way we can get this agreement request started. And just know that all these fields have some auto-populated information that can be pulled based off the specific agreement request that can be tied to that specific electronic form. So as I go ahead and select that external party that we're going to be working with, you're also going to see that information that was auto-populated in those fields. And again, as Carlos referenced in his demonstration, that's really just some information that's being auto-populated that's really related to that information. Next, we'll want to go ahead and select when we need that agreement by. And finally, if this agreement is from an external party. After we have all that information, we're going to want to go ahead and submit that contract request. Now just know, as I submit that contract request, in no way, shape, or form are we actually putting an agreement in place. We again are just moving it to the appropriate queue to start that entire contract management process. Next, on the left-hand side of the screen, I have that unassigned contract request tile on my personal page. This is really where we're going to begin triaging the specific contract request. So as we open up this view, there's a lot really going on this screen, but I'm happy to continue to go through this screen prior to moving that contract request forward in the process. On the top screen there, we have a nice color-coded header. This is really going to change colors as we continue to move this specific contract request forward in the process. In addition to this header changing color, we also have that specific contract number that is associated with this contract request, where it is at in the process, and the type of agreement that it is. Below that, we have some specific milestones for this contract request. In the process of moving forward with this contract request, each milestone will indicate a date and timestamp once that process has been completed. That way, it will provide a nice audit trail of when that step was completed. Moving to the left-hand side of the screen, I have that contract information. That is really the information that will be relevant to this specific contract request. In addition to that, we have the ability to actually expand that view out if we want to add some additional information. Directly below that is that contact list. This is going to be all those contacts that are actually working with this specific contract request. We're going to go ahead and assign some users to this. That way, there are those parties receiving notifications when the necessary steps need to be taken. Those notifications can be set up in the background of OnBase to be sent out via email or within the OnBase system on an as-needed basis. Next, we're going to go ahead and move to that tasks container on the right-hand side of my screen. As you can see, we have one open task, which is assigned that contract administrator. We just recently assigned Cindy Smith as that contract administrator. So we're going to want to go ahead and open up that task. As we've opened up that task, we can go ahead and indicate that this has been done. And once we've submitted that, we can now see that that status has been moved from open to done. We also have the ability to create some custom tasks on an as-needed basis simply by creating a task utilizing this plus bar. You will also see some auto-generated tasks continue to flow through this process as we continue to move this contract request forward. Directly below that tasks container, we actually additionally have a notes container. This is for any kind of notes we want to add to this specific contract request, should we want users that are working this to be notified of this. Let's go ahead and create a note just for example. As we go ahead and create this note, we also are able to see who this was created by, when it was created on, and in addition, what contract it was related to. So now that we've gone ahead and save and close that, again, this will be viewed by all users that are working this specific request. Directly below that notes container, we have a documents container. This is going to be for any specific documents that would be related to this contract request. Right now, we just have that initial electronic agreement request form that was submitted in the initial process. Once we have that agreement composed, you will see that agreement actually be contained right within this container as well. Next to that documents container is the emails container. Here's where we can import any emails that might be related to this contract request that might be relevant for users to view. After we've gone ahead and actually assigned that contract administrator and indicated that that task is done, this is where we would want to take that next action on this specific contract request. Now that we've gone ahead and viewed this specific agreement and indicated that we want to go ahead and move this forward in the process, we're going to make our way to that tasks tab at the top. And from our actions tasks, we'll go ahead and select that approve. Now that we've gone ahead and approved that, as you can see below underneath the review completed, again, we have that date and timestamp of when that was completed. For the next portion of this process, we're going to want to go ahead and actually draft the agreement up. There are two steps in this process. First, we're going to go ahead and look at what it looks like to form an agreement from an end to end. So again, I'm going to go ahead and move to that tasks tab at the top and select within that actions and compose an agreement. Next, we'll want to go ahead and select the appropriate template group and template. And just know that the template that was pulled there was pulled based on relating to that specific template group. So each individual organization does have the ability to add additional template groups and assign those related templates on an as-needed basis. So now that I've selected that appropriate contract agreement, you can see that based off that original contract request, there's been some auto-generated fields, which is that 9 seconds food and that Deltec, which is who those two parties that this agreement would be between. Again, this is an end-to-end agreement. So if you know that really the verbiage between the contract is not going to be changing often, this would be a great agreement and compose type to utilize for those contract requests. For the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this just so I can show that second way we can draft an agreement. Next, I want to go ahead and move to that All Clauses tab. This is really where any kind of clauses that would be related to a contract would be shown. I haven't yet imported any clauses, so you're not seeing anything on my screen just yet. I'm going to make my way back to that Actions tab and auto import some clauses. By selecting this action, it's going to import some clauses that would be related to that original agreement type that we selected in that initial electronic form. That contract type again was that procurement agreement. As you can see, there are 5 different clauses that have been pulled within this all clauses screen. We're going to go ahead and select on one of those clauses. It is within this screen that we actually have the ability to assign the different clauses to maybe a different user. So if within the contract management department, if you only have certain users working with certain clauses, you can simply assign those users within this screen. In addition to that, we can show the history for that specific clause on the bottom of my screen there. That way, if the clause was edited at all. I'm going to go ahead and say that this clause looks good and we're ready to move forward in the process. After we have all those necessary clauses in place, what we can do next is actually generate that agreement. And I do also want to point out that by utilizing the clauses method to compose an agreement, it really just provides the organization the flexibility if there ever is a need to change the verbiage within an agreement on a semi or annual basis. Once we have that agreement published via Word, I will just go ahead and pull that up real quick just to show, again, we are just auto-generating some information based off that initial contract request. We are now really ready to move that over to that party that originally requested this contract. So again, I'll make my way to the tasks tab at the top. And we have a couple different options on really sending that over. I'm going to go ahead and send this agreement via ShareBase. What this is going to do is send an email to that other party and provide them a secure link to actually view that agreement. Once that email has been received, they'll be able to actually view that, make any types of revisions, and then upload that back to the party for additional review. We do also have the ability to send this agreement by email right within the OnBase system. Once I have sent that agreement via ShareBase, I'm going to go ahead and indicate that I've sent that to that external party. As you can see, we have underneath that draft completed, again, that date and timestamp for that audit trail for this entire process. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and change hats and act as if I'm that party that's receiving the initial draft of this agreement to review. Now that I'm over in my Outlook, I'm going to go ahead and pull up that agreement that was sent over. As I access that ShareBase link, you will see that that contract has been provided. I'm going to go ahead and download that agreement via Word. And it is right within Word that I have the ability to maybe add some additional verbiage on an as-needed basis. I just went ahead and added some wordage here just so I can show that ability to compare once we are back in the system. Next, what I'll do is provide that updated contract back over to Cindy Smith, who is waiting on this revision. What I'm doing next here is I'm simply importing this document back into ShareBase. That way, Cindy will have the ability to review this updated document. What I'm going to do next here is I'm actually back on my personal page where I have another tile that has already been pre-configured. It is that ShareBase revision approval tile that is in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. By clicking on one of these documents that is in that ShareBase revision, all we are doing really in this screen is indicating that this is actually an agreement and a revision of that initial agreement that was sent over to that external party. If we can agree that this is that new and revisioned agreement, we can go ahead and move to the top Tasks tab and accept that as a contract revision. This does take time after we have accepted that contract revision. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this screen, make my way back to that contract management application, and actually manually import that document. Now that we have that updated document in the system, I'm going to go ahead and import that. As I pull up that document, moving to the right-hand side of the screen in the top there, you see that there's revision 2 of 2. We're going to go ahead and double click on that. We're going to go ahead and check both of those boxes and actually compare. As you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen, we have some red underlining information that was provided on that updated agreement. On the right-hand side of the screen is that original agreement. Again, that red underlining information that was provided on the left-hand side of the screen is all just the basic functionality of Microsoft Word. Just know that this process of passing the agreement back and forth between the two parties can be done as many times as necessary. Now that we've gone ahead and agreed that that is a revised agreement and we're okay with the verbiage on it, we're really ready to move forward to the next step in the process. So as as Cindy Smith is continuing to review this, we can go ahead and indicate that we accept this. Again, now you can see that that date and timestamp has been highlighted and that negotiation completed milestone is now complete. That next step in the process is really to get that legally binding signature on the document. That way we can activate that agreement. So what we're going to want to do next is make sure that we can apply that signature correctly to the document. And by moving to the actions task at the top there and creating a PDF version, then we will want to make our way back down to that document. And as you can see, now the document is no longer in a Word form, it is actually in a PDF format. Hyland does offer a great partnership with DocuSign, and this integration can be utilized for that signature portion. By making my way to the top of the screen, you can see that DocuSign integration right within OnBase. We're going to want to go ahead and send that to DocuSign. DocuSign really here is just going to ask me to apply some necessary information to ensure we can get that document over to that necessary party. So what I'm going to do first is move to that actions arrow at the top there, indicate that we need to add some messaging to this. I'm going to go ahead and just add a very general subject and an email message in there. Additionally, I'm going to want to make sure that I have a recipient on this email. And finally, we're going to want to go ahead and move to the bottom of this document to make sure we apply a signature portion for that recipient. Let's also add a date timestamp as well. Once we have all that information in place, we can go ahead and send that. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change hats again, and I'm going to make my way over to my Gmail account that I just sent that email to. As you can see, I've received that email from Cindy Smith. We're going to go ahead and review that document to ensure we apply that signature. As we start that process, it takes us to the portion of the page and we can apply that signature. Once that signature has been applied, we can go ahead and finish. And that that signature portion has been completed. Now we're going to go ahead and make our way back into OnBase. And we're going to go ahead and review that document because Cindy's still waiting to see if she has received that actual signature from that external party. I do also want to point out that DocuSign does offer the ability to check the status of each document as well. As you can see, I pull up the envelope details. You can see the activity history on that specific document. Now let's go ahead and check this latest revision to see if that signature was applied. As I make my way to the bottom of the screen, you're able to see that Bob Smith has successfully applied that signature. Now that we have that signature in place, we're really ready to move this contract forward in that contract management process. Let's go ahead and make our way back up to that Tasks tab, select the appropriate action to move that agreement forward externally. Again, I just want to point out, if we ever need to send that back via ShareBase, we still have that action that is still open. Again, we're going to go ahead and indicate, though, that we've assigned this externally and we're ready to move forward. Now you can see that those next two milestones have been completed, which is that agreement signed and that agreement is now active. I do also want to point out that we do have the ability to send out notifications, or whether that agreement is coming up on expiration or if an agreement has become expired. Those notifications can be sent out through the basic point and click configurability that OnBase offers. We do also have the ability to store any expired contracts, which is that that archived milestone. That way, if you ever need to reference any past contracts that have been expired for any future ones coming up. Finally, I did want to also make my way back to that personal page and really just to provide the ability to view any contracts within the system. So I'm going ahead and selecting that contract management, and I'm going to select filters. And Carlos really did a great job of going over the filters portion earlier, but I did also want to, again, just briefly touch on that ability to look at any kind of contracts that are within my specific system. As you can see here, all these contracts are really associated to the specific user that is working within the system. If maybe I'm looking at this and I want to get a little bit more granular research and look at those specific company names that I'm working with, again, like all I have to do is simply drag and drop that, and now I can see those those companies and how many I have associated with each. Again, all I have to do is drag and drop, and now I can get back to that original display. If I do want to see this information via a dashboard, all I have to do is click that display as dashboard, and this is going to show really a much more simpler version of that information. And finally, I did also want to touch on the ability to show all that information in a reporting dashboards. Again, Carlos really covered this in his portion as well, but this same functionality is available within the contract management point application. Really, this does provide a manager's 10,000 foot view. Maybe they're seeing that Cindy Smith's workload is really just coming to an extreme level here. As you can see, she has 44 contracts assigned to her. Maybe she as a manager, you want to go ahead and try and divide up some of that work. The great thing is, right within this functionality and this additional module that OnBase offers, we do have the ability to actually go ahead and interact with any of these contracts right from that view. So as you can see here, I went ahead, opened up that contract that Cindy Smith has been assigned. Again, maybe I want to go ahead and assign this to a different user. I do have that ability as a manager to go ahead and do so. Just know that, when viewing that, you can change also the security rights, and maybe you don't want all users to have the ability to view the reporting dashboards. It can be restricted, again, based off that easy point and click configurability within OnBase. Additionally, you can export this information via data. Again, as Carlos explained earlier, you can send this to an internal party, maybe to another personal page of a different manager, or maybe a director within the organization, and you can share this as well. Do want to thank everyone for their time today while I covered this contract management application, and I'm looking forward to any kind of questions that might have come up.
So Brandon, a couple of questions. If you can give a little overview of number one, ShareBase, and then number two, if if the customer doesn't have DocuSign, is this still a viable solution?
So maybe you can expand for me a little bit on the share-based.
So some people may not be familiar with a enterprise file sync and share, and so the tool you used was Highland's file sync and share product, and it's comparable to a Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that, but it is built for commercial use, and it is highly integrated with the solution here. So we can send a link to a customer that you're working with in contracts, have them pick that document up within that folder, work with it, and put it back in the folder. So it's just like exchanging documents through Dropbox, except that it's integrated tightly in the workflow, so the workflow contract administrator never loses sight of it. It knows it was sent out. They know that somebody accessed it, and they know when it's coming back. So that was kind of the overview that I was hoping to get for this group who may not be familiar with enterprise file sync and share. Most of them would be acquainted with a standard personal file sync and share like Google Drive or Dropbox, but this is a enterprise file sync and share solution. So are there other alternatives for using signatures other than if they don't have DocuSign? Is there an option otherwise?
Yeah. So hey, everybody, this is Chris Corey. I'm another solution engineer here at Highland, and I do just want to expand on that a little bit further. So we do have a few options available. So if you saw when Brandon was converting that contract over to a PDF, obviously, if we don't want to use an integrated signing method, we can just take that PDF, route it out via something like ShareBase, so that user can pull that down and then sign it and re-upload it back to us. Obviously, we could do the same thing via email. And I did want to point out that we do also have in the very, very near future here, an integration for Adobe Sign coming out as well. So we do definitely have some other options there. And then in the event that the contract is just moving around internally, and maybe we're not referencing an external party, we do also have other digital signature options for internal users that can directly access the digital document as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Are there any other questions from the attendees? Brandon, thank you very much. And thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. A very informative presentation. And